I believe every person has a right to basic knowledge of how to optimize their mind, body, and spirit. Here, I bring to you influential individuals and ideas to help you live a more healthy, fulfilling life. I'm Julie Fouché, and I'd like to welcome you to Pursuing Health. Welcome back to Pursuing Health. This is episode number 29. With the CrossFit Games regional season coming to a close and the 2016 CrossFit Games quickly approaching, I'm very excited to share this episode with you in which I sit down with CrossFit Games Director and Co-Director of Training, Dave Castro. A little bit of background about Dave before we get started. He enlisted in the Navy shortly after graduating from high school, and he served as a SEAL from 1998 through 2010. During his years of service, he discovered CrossFit in 2005, and it wasn't long after that that he began working for CrossFit headquarters in Santa Cruz in 2006. He hosted the very first CrossFit Games competition at his family's ranch in Aromas, California in 2007, and since that time, the CrossFit Games competition has grown exponentially into a professional sport under Dave's direction. This year marks the 10th season of competition in CrossFit Games history. I sat down with Dave during the first of 3 regional competition weekends this year at the California Regional in Del Mar, California. We discuss his approach to programming and directing the games, some of the lessons he learned as a SEAL and how he continues to apply them in his work today, his daily routine, as well as what drives him to chase virtuosity in all he does. Before we get started, I have a few quick reminders. First, if you're enjoying the podcast, please head over to iTunes to subscribe and consider giving it a 5-star rating. Please also head to my website, juliefouché.com, where you can enter emails to stay in the loop with the podcast and everything else I'm doing with my bi-weekly newsletter. I'm also always looking for inspiring stories to share. So if you or someone you know has used lifestyle to overcome a serious health challenge, please send your story to me at info@juliefouché.com, and I'll select some to share here on future episodes. If you're interested in training with me, check out my program through Beyond the Whiteboard. This is the actual training I do now 5 days per week, an hour per day, scheduled out for you minute by minute from warm-up to cool down. Through the end of June, we're offering a free 2-week trial of the programming, so it's a great time to check it out. For more info or to try the program out yourself, visit beyondthewhiteboard.com/JulieFouché. So with that, let's get started here with episode number 29 of Pursuing Health, featuring the one and only Dave Castro. Welcome to Pursuing Health. I'm really excited to be here with Dave Castro today, and I am very appreciative that you're taking the time to do this because we're in the middle of regional season, and right now we're actually at the California Regional.
Correct.
And I do want to talk more about competition a little bit later on, but so far, how do you think the first weekend of regionals is going?
Well, first, let me say thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you.
You're actually the first podcast I've done.
Wow, what an honor.
I say no to all of them. I've been asked to be on most of them, and most of the ones within the community. And traditionally for the past, years I've been involved with CrossFit. I just say no. It's something I've not been interested in doing. We do our media with CrossFit, and I just stay to that. But then recently, Blair Morrison actually asked me to be on his show, and I said yes because he's a good friend of mine. I like him. And then you asked me to be on your show, and I said yes. I'll say yes to you because you're a good friend of mine.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
If you're not a good friend of mine, I probably won't be on your show. So if you want me to appear on your show, you have to be a friend. The first week of regionals, I think they're going well. I think the workouts are playing out to how I imagined them, but there's some little tweaks that we've made off of watching some of them go down. And you'll notice in the first week of, maybe you won't notice, but people will notice in the first week of competition, I'm watching every event and I pay close attention to the layout. And there might be minor adjustments we need to make, not in the actual event in terms of reps, but in layout to increase the safety for competitors relative to each other or for the judges and their position. One workout, the team snatch event, has a lot of moving parts, has a lot of people on the floor, and has a lot of weight being thrown around. And so there's opportunities to increase the safety of it and just make sure judges are not next to someone snatching. The first vision, the original intent or the original vision for that workout, my original vision was every lane basically you snatch and you advance forward, and it'd make for a great race, and it'd be a much better visual. But with lanes of 10 and 10 teams, you can't do that because there's just two side by side with the bars. If at like an invitational, that would be epic, where you just snatch, advance, snatch, and it would play out really well where you have 5 teams or something like that.
Right.
And I was stubborn, and in planning, I was going over with the team, and the team's like, hey, we probably shouldn't do that. It's going to be really tight. And I'm like, no, these guys are good. It'll be fine. And so sometimes, you have to listen to your team. And I'm really glad on this one that I listened to the team. They it didn't take much convincing. Once they brought it up, I was like, okay, you guys are right. We'll condense this to where you're all snatching in one spot and staggered. And that's just some of the back end stuff that happens when you plan these workouts, and then that when we're here, we're looking at that and seeing if it's playing out as planned. And another thing is, you asked me about the first week of competition. That stuff is more important in what I'm looking at rather than the actual competition.
Okay.
So I do care about who goes. I do care about some of these people, as some of them are my friends. Some of them I'm interested in knowing how they do. That part of it is a secondary part to making sure that this is the shakeout week. This is the actual proof of concept, if you will. And this proves that everything we put on paper and wrote out actually can work and actually is a good test and actually displays well to the world. And I think we're seeing that. I'm really happy with this team final. That played out really well, and the last one in here was dramatic and exciting. So
it always makes it exciting to watch.
Yep.
In terms of planning, I've seen you. Sometimes you post pictures of like little models that you use. Can you talk to us about? Obviously, you can't go through it with this many people, but what are some of the ways that you plan and prepare for how everything is going to play out?
Well, I'm very visual, and I need to. So those. I remember a few years ago at the games, Tony Budding, were planning an event, and we were using we were at a restaurant and we were using bread dough. I mean, not bread dough, but bread muffins, buns. And we were moving them around the table, and Susanna D, who helps with a lot of this stuff with the visuals, she was there, and she got the idea, I need to make you guys models. So she made us complete models. I whiteboard a lot. I pencil and paper a lot. I use the models. I use real life models, real spacing, in my garage. I have lane markers laid out so I can space everything out. So I use a ton of different approaches to get to the same place, always writing stuff down, always scribbling notes. When I fly, I have a notepad. So I have a lot of different places where I put stuff together, and then I try to just bring it all together and lay it out and get it somewhere I'm happy with. Okay.
Very interesting to know how it all goes down and try to get inside your head a little bit.
It's a lot of it's year round. I'm thinking of concepts. I'm thinking of big picture things. I'm thinking of something I want to do as a statement or something I want to do as a moment, like a figure piece, and then I'll try to build around those. And I'll have ideas at the strangest of moments. I'll have ideas, anywhere, and then I just have to either write it down or I'll email myself or I'll take it back, and then I'll have sessions. So I have ideas and I have sessions where I sit down, lock myself in a room, usually play music, and I just start going. And it's in those sessions, it's weird that sometimes something will click and I'll go, that's it, bingo, I love it. And then there's other times where I'm just stuck and it takes a really long time, and there's times when I feel the pressure of like, hey, we have a deadline, everything's coming up, you need this to be done. And so I'll start feeling the pressure of getting stuff done. I start going into my sessions more, and there's times when I'm not getting anything done, and I'm just like, this is so difficult, this is so hard.
It's like writer's block.
Yeah, totally. And then there's one moment where everything clicks, and I'm talking about for a movement, or I'm not movement, for a workout or an event, I'll call it. Something will click and it's just so perfect and it's right there, and I'm like, that's it. Yeah. That's it. One of the moments I remember for this year's programming was the snatch event. And I wanted to do something different, but I didn't want to do something too crazy, and I didn't want to do another speed snatch ladder like we've done in the past. And then I thought of 16.2 and how we had the cutoffs. Right. And I was thinking I should do the same thing in that event, and every 2 minutes you have a cutoff. And I love the way that played out, because in I was in Texas when that was going down, watching that region. Basically, what you have 10 athletes start, and if you're not keeping up, you're getting thinned out. And so by the final 2 to 5 minutes of the event, you have just a few athletes, just the best athletes on the floor, and your focus is on them. So it's really cool how visually that event's playing out.
Yeah. That was one that I was really interested in, the progression and how we've seen over the years. Like, first we had the clean speed ladder, then we had the snatch, and then this event, which is very different. But it's interesting to see sort of the progression and how you develop that over time.
And it's hard to, there's a point, too, where how much new stuff are you going to come up with, or are we going to come up with? How are we going to reinvent? And I don't feel pressure to do that. And I think that's why we're able to do it. I never sit there programming the games or the regionals or even the open thinking I have to do something new and I have to throw in a twist, although that stuff happens. And so it's a nice balance. I don't want people to think I'm sitting back here thinking I just need to create new things all the time. I'm just finding stuff that's traditional and giving it a little different twist sometimes on its application. Also, I'm not a big fan of what I call loud programming. I'm not a fan of just really stuff that's over-programmed, over-described, over-loaded. I like stuff simple. And that being said, you will see, like, we have to do a chipper. We will do some stuff that's more complicated, but I prefer the clean workouts and the simple workouts way more than I prefer the
simple but effective.
Yeah, exactly. Just like the programming.
True. And we saw a video behind the open with Dave Castro, which I loved. And you talk in that a little bit about your creative process and how you use different inspiration from like art or music or different things. Could you take us through maybe like an example? I don't know if you have an example of like one workout and how it started and how it evolved, or what type of feedback to get to the point where it was maybe at this regional or at the open.
Let's take the Invitational.
Okay.
So that thruster rope climb workout, when I saw that go down there, and this is less related to some of the things you're asking about for inspiration, but it's related to how I got here. I decided that workout was really good at the Invitational. I was really happy with how it went, and it's a good individual test. And I decided then, while I was watching it in Madrid, that's going to be one of the workouts. That's going to be the final at the at this regional. And then at the regional. So then I basically wrote that down and started working backwards or around that. That was kind of an anchor for the regions. Nate was also actually I'll call an anchor workout for the regionals, in that it was one that I decided early on was going to be there, another Hero Friday thing. Then it was a matter of, I don't want to say making it judgeable, but making it something that we could put in application at these events. So we wanted to use the kettlebell swing. I wanted to use the kettlebell swing again, but as we were trying to figure out how to judge it.
It's a hard one.
It's a hard one. The muscle up, admittedly, is a very hard one. But you know what? We had to go there. We had to try. And that's one of the things in this. I don't think you can be too afraid to try new things or to take risks. And sometimes we take risks and it bites us in the ass. Other times I'm happy with the risks we take, and it's a good thing. If you don't take risks in life, you're not gonna get far.
Right. And usually, I think it's true. The people who are supposed to move on end up moving on because they adapt to those new challenges.
Yep. The year of the Winter Olympics, the biathlon. I was watching the biathlon, and I was like, "Oh, that's a great event. That's really cool." I'm like, "I need to do something like that." And that was the year at the CrossFit Games where we did the muscle up biathlon. And so that's how that inspired me to do that. The couple years ago, I got into Formula One and watching that, and then the speed sled at the games was inspired by my interest in Formula One and just looking into that world a little. I told Bill to make me something like a Formula One race car, a little
very sleek. It did not feel very sleek.
No, it was heavy. So, but it still was a great event. And the stuff, the way that art or books or movies or music inspire me isn't as straightforward as those things. Those examples are really straightforward. But I think I do a lot of those other things, read, go to plays, movies and all that, music, just to keep me
creative.
creative and outside of my comfort zone, outside of my box, and so it helps just keep me going. I'm doing this new thing this year where I try to read every morning first thing when I wake up, just to kind of warm up, and it's like part of my routine. I'll wake up, grab my book, read, and then start going to work. I have a routine throughout the day, but that's a new addition to it.
Can you tell us your routine? That was going to be one of my later questions because I'm very curious. Maybe like a typical day when you're at home, how it would go.
I'll get up, I'll read now, and then I go straight to my computer and start doing emails. I'll say good morning and hello to my family, spend a little time with them.
Important details.
And then I'll go straight to work, and I work from probably 6:30 to usually around 9:30, 10.
Okay.
And just put in, an epic session answering the previous day's emails or stuff I need to do, working on the seminars, scheduling, staffing, doing all of that. Then I'll take a hour break and a couple hour break, usually go work out at that time. In the when I was doing all my drop-ins, that really messed up my life. And here's why it messed up my life.
It's a big time commitment.
Because it was a huge time commitment. And so I decided I wanted to hit all the gyms in San Diego County after the games.
Right.
And I, in the beginning, it was easy because there's like 30 gyms in North County, and I was able to drive 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, hit a gym, come home. By the end, I was hitting all the gyms south and down here, and it would be an hour drive to get to a gym, an hour to work out, an hour drive back. And so it was a 3-hour commitment just to do this. And I really wanted to finish it by the Open, before the Open started. That was my goal. And so eventually I got to this point where I said, I'm going to go ahead and double up.
Okay.
And I started doubling up, and I'd drive down, do a workout, stay in the area, drive to another box, do a workout, and come back. So that saved me. In my head, I was like, that's 2 hours of driving the next day if I can double up.
Sure.
And so that's how I think to make things more efficient.
Right.
Do work, break away, go do work, go work out.
And usually you work out at your garage?
Well, yeah.
Now?
Now.
Now that you're done with all the gyms.
Yeah, but before that, that gym thing was
it was almost a year.
It wasn't a year, but it was about a 5 or 6 month commitment of, and I travel a lot. So when I travel, I'd essentially lose days that were opportunities to go to a gym. So, but it was good. I'm really glad I did that. And and what's funny, during that, there was one point when I couldn't go to a gym, but I really wanted to work out. So I just worked out in my garage. And I was like, oh my God, I love working out in my garage. I fell in love with working out in my garage.
That's good.
Currently, I'm mixing it up. I'm swimming.
Okay.
I'm running, and I'm biking. Still doing CrossFit, but I'm adding those things in just to stay fresh. And what's interesting about running for me, and even workout, doing CrossFit, I think a lot, and it helps me program. Actually I'll usually program for myself a workout that I'm going to do a couple minutes before doing it in the garage. And so I'll warm up, and then I'll think of things I want to do. And sometimes I think of couplets and things that I'd like to do for the athletes, and I pair them together and test them out on myself. Obviously, much lighter weight, play with the reps. At the stage of just pairing combos, I usually don't worry too much about the reps that I'd apply to the games athletes.
Right.
So I'll think about that in programming, create my workout, and then do it. And once you do a workout, you can't really think about anything. But when I run, I just think a lot. And running's a good time, probably because I'm not running really fast, but I just think and think about everything.
Sure.
And it's so, you see in that video, I talk a lot about I'll rehearse my announcements while I run. And even when I'm running before the Opens, I'll think about ways to announce them and just how to do them. And I'm thinking about a lot of games-related things. Running's a good
it's almost like a meditation. Or like
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go. We've been talking a lot about games and programming and what you do now. I want to go back a little bit further.
Yeah.
So most people know that your background is from the Navy and being a SEAL. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what drew you to that as a career in the first place, because obviously doing that kind of work, you have to have a really strong calling or a sense that that's what your intention is.
Well, there's a couple things. And thank you, I appreciate that, because I feel like now more than ever, a lot of people know that I did that. But in the very beginning, when this is kind of a sideways way to get to your question. When I first got involved in CrossFit, I was still active duty. And it was very important to me to keep that separate from my CrossFit life.
Okay.
I didn't want to become known in CrossFit or anything in CrossFit because I was a SEAL at the time, for professional reasons and personal reasons. And so I told Tony, who was director of media at the time, I told Greg, I told everyone that was involved, hey, don't put that out. Don't, ask me questions about it on media or anything like that. And so I was very happy that we kept that out of it. And even recently, within the past year or two, people still come up to me and go, I just found out you were in the Navy, you were a SEAL, that's really cool, thanks for your service. And that makes me proud that I was able to grow in CrossFit and become who I am in CrossFit without being attached to that. Because I feel these days there's so many people who essentially lead with that, SEALs. And they make a name for themselves outside of the SEAL community or in the public, we'll say, because they were, former Navy SEAL so-and-so. And I definitely don't lead with that. You'll never see me lead with that. You'll never see me use that. And I'm happy that I was brought up, I like to say it's not really older, but the older days of SEALs, I came in 98, and I was drilled to be a silent professional, and I think I really took that to heart. And I think some of us in that era really took it to heart and lived by it, lived with that ethos, essentially. I see nowadays, I don't think people, I'm not being fair, a majority of them are, for sure, but there's a very few who are not, and for me personally, that's not my style. I grew up on the ranch, obviously, and I did not want to be a truck driver. My parents owned a trucking company. My brother was a truck driver. My dad was a truck driver. That's why the shop and that's why that ranch exists.
I did not know that.
That's why everything there is what it is. And I did not want to go into trucking. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. But I was into hiking in the mountains. I was into G.I. Joe and stuff like that. I was into the outdoors. And then one day, I went with my girlfriend from high school to see The Rock with Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage. And I was watching the movie, and there was the scene when the SEALs, they come out from under in the drain into the bathroom, and then the Marines shoot them, and they all die. And it was a really epic, dramatic scene.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that was really cool. And even though those guys got, shot up, essentially, I'm like, that was all cool about what they did. And I'm like, I need to look into that some more. So I started reading all the books, Dick Marcinko books, all the books from that time that were around on Navy SEALs, watching all the DVDs, and I just immersed myself in what they were. And everything I kept coming back to at the time was how they go through the most difficult training, and they're the most highly trained individuals. And at that point, highly trained individuals in the military, special forces, a seed was planted, and it was this simple seed. Can I do that? And I was like, can I do that? And once that seed was planted, it was just done. There was no way I wasn't going to do it, because I needed to know if I could do that. And I played sports in high school. I didn't make the basketball team. I tried out. I got cut. That was disappointing. I was on the football team for a few years. Never started. Started one game. And then didn't start again. I was a backup wide receiver. So I was not a star athlete. I didn't run at all. I wish I would have, because once I decided I wanted to be a SEAL and see if I could do that, I started running a lot. And it turns out I was a pretty good runner. And so I wish I would have ran in high school. I didn't swim at all. So I started swimming to prepare for BUD/S. I went to college, and my parents really wanted me to go to college. I went to California State University, Monterey Bay, in Monterey. But the seed was already planned for the other thing. And my parents were like, you have to go to college. That's what you're going to do. That's what you said you were going to do. I'm like, you're right. After a month, I thought, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. I knew if I didn't, I wasn't going to go through college for 4 years and still want to be a Navy SEAL. Something would change.
Then you're going to feel like you have to use your degree or do
so
something.
Many things. A family, there's just a thousand things that can happen. So that notion of if I don't do it now, I might not ever do it has actually played out throughout my life and other decisions or other things that, it's been something that I always fall back on. So I decided, hey, I'm going to drop out of school and I'm going to try this. I need to know if I can do it. And so I dropped out of college, enlisted in the Navy, and then in February 10th of 97, shipped off to boot camp. And it was a trip. It was a crazy experience. Went to boot camp. At that point, and at boot camp, you try out for BUD/S then. You do a little PT test, did the test, passed it. Then you go to a vocational school, which was in Pensacola, Florida, do another test, passed it, and then I went to BUD/S. And basically within about a year of enlisting, I was at a SEAL team. And so I was very young,
That seems fast. Is that typical?
It was pretty fast. So when I went to Buds, I didn't get rolled. I didn't get dropped. And a lot of people get rolled or dropped for various reasons, injuries, performance. And I was very fortunate that I was able to make it through in one push. And I was the middleman. And I've always been that way, maybe not now in CrossFit, but where I'm just the dark man. And when I get into environments, I'm just like the tests especially.
Yeah.
I don't try to shine. I don't try to get out in front of everyone. I just do my thing.
Right.
I've had multiple phases in my SEAL career, where I had different schools or different testing environments or different selection processes where I went through, and I would always just stay that middleman. Didn't try to make a name for myself beyond what I needed to do, and didn't try to suck at anything either.
Right.
So I went to a SEAL team, within a year, and I was 19 at the time.
Wow.
And people, you have to realize about me, I'm 38 now. For the past 10 years, I've been working for CrossFit. My entire 30s, I've been working for CrossFit. My entire 20s, I was in the SEAL teams. I was a Navy SEAL, and that is not an easy community or an easy environment to be in.
Right.
So people think what they think of me or my attitude or how I handle things, but you have to look back and just see the foundation. Like, I came up in a pretty, I don't want to say hardcore environment, but I think that, I will say
that's a pretty accurate,
fair.
Yeah.
And so that time period for me is really formative of who I am and how I do things now. And if Greg Glassman wouldn't have given me this opportunity and job with CrossFit, I still would be in the Navy right now. I'd be getting ready to probably retire in a couple years at 20 years. And but so I had an amazing experience. I did some amazing things, met amazing people. I still have friends, and it is the reason I am who I am now. And it's something I'll never take for granted.
Sure, absolutely.
It's very important to me. But for the good and the bad, it is the reasons for who I am.
And what about in the video too, you talk about some of the things that you learned or some of the things that you carry over from that experience into CrossFit, but what are some of the lessons you learned or some of the ways that you approach CrossFit that you established?
Well, I don't like to think that things aren't possible, or I don't like to think that I like to believe we as a team can push further than we as a team think we're capable of doing. And so I hold very high expectations for everyone who works with me or for me. I hold everyone to high standards, and that's something I got from that community, because we are the best of the best. And sometimes it's hard on people. Sometimes the demand on people to be better than they are is too much for them. And others rise to the occasion, some don't. As a leader, you kind of have to learn to adjust to different styles of people. Some people I can give very little guidance to, and then they're going to run with it and do everything I want them to do. Others, you have to give them more guidance, otherwise they're not going to do as well as you think they will. And so for me, leaving that community, coming into this community, I've had to deal more with that, just learning people's styles, whereas in the teams, everyone was a go-getter pretty much, and everyone tried very hard to excel. And so also obviously is the organizational skills, just making everything run to a timeline. That's all from that community. Chain of command and just being very disciplined like that all came from there. Probably the biggest thing though, and it's thinking outside of the box. In that community, you have to think outside of the box, and you have to do things in a non-traditional way. We didn't do things like the traditional military, and there's a reason why. So when I come into where I've been here, applying that to how I lead, how I do things, how I program, how I run events, always thinking outside of the box, always thinking of ways, not settling for the norm, not settling for the standard. And that's all stuff that came from back there.
And I think we saw that too in the video, just the level of detail and preparation that you do for all the little, even the announcements and every little responsibility that you have, you're doing it to the 10th degree, to the 100th degree. And I think that that's something that obviously in CrossFit as a whole, we talk about virtuosity in movement and in coaching and things like that, but you really exemplify how you do that in every aspect of your life.
One of the things when people ask what it was like being a SEAL, especially pre 9/11, but I said we trained. We trained all the time. We were just, we rehearsed. We would go out and practice all our drills. So everything was just practice, training, prepping for what we'd have to do eventually, even after 9/11 and once we were going to wars. Before you deploy, you spend 6 months to over a year preparing just for going overseas. And so preparation is a huge part of all of this, just preparing, rehearsing, getting everything in line, looking at all the fine details. So that's important.
Yeah, the visualization is something too that you always think about as an athlete, visualizing, and that's something that I learned when I was younger in gymnastics. Like you always practice in your head and visualize and see yourself doing it perfectly. But I think a lot of times people don't realize that you can do that in everyday life.
In everything, for anything, and that's important. And I learned that when I was deployed a lot. It was really important for me to visualize what we were doing. We were going, on target or doing things. It would calm me down. It would get me set for going into this chaotic environment. And you'd get on a helicopter and you'd be flying to a target essentially, and you'd have a lot of time to think. And you can think some really negative thoughts. You can think about things going very bad, especially in a helicopter, because a helicopter for me was the worst place, because that's where you're going to die. And I don't say that lightly. I mean that, I've lost a lot of friends in helicopters. Getting shot down in a helicopter, you're so exposed to the enemy and exposed. You have no control over what's going to happen. When you're out of the helicopter, going through a street or doing your thing, you can make a decision. It might get you killed. You might make the wrong decision that can get you killed, but you have control of what you're doing. And in a helicopter, that's all gone. So those are a lot of times to think and reflect. And you could think of negative things like that happening, or you can think of what's going to happen on your target and just rehearse and go over. I eventually, towards the later period of my career as a SEAL, became an instructor and taught tactics. And I would tell the students, hey, again, you have limited reps inside the house, going through the house and doing the stuff you need to do. Sit outside and think about it. And I would do that a lot when I was going through the same training. I would sit outside the house, just close my eyes and visualize, okay, I'm going to go do this, this. And I still do that a lot for everything I do. Even working out, I visualize the workout, but it always doesn't turn out that way. And
but it probably turns out better than if you hadn't.
I think what it helps me do is expect what's going to happen. I just know, okay, I'm probably going to start fatiguing here or gassing here, put down here. But that's not the only place you do that. As you mentioned, every part of your life you should visualize. Having a conversation with a business associate, you should visualize how that's going to go, and you should think how they're going to respond. You need to play chess. I don't mean physically. I don't mean literally, but I mean be a chess player in everything with life, and visualizing helps that.
Right. It's so amazing how powerful that is, and just laying down the pattern of what's possible, and then, like you said, also the belief of believing that something is possible that maybe other people don't, and how important that is for making it happen. And it's something, we see it, like they say, sports teaches you about life. You see it as an athlete. Like, you have to believe that you can win if you're going to even come close.
For sure.
And that's a big thing that I learned over my career, but also like visualizing just day to day and seeing whether you're in training or whether you're in competition or whether you're in doing anything else in your life.
For sure.
Can you just talk briefly about the transition then, and how you got into CrossFit and what drew you into this role, and what drives you to do so well at it now?
In 96, 97, I was stationed out in Monterey for Defense Language Institute. At the time, I'd already been doing CrossFit for about a year. And so while I was in Monterey, I knew that the headquarters was in Santa Cruz. And so I started making trips over to Santa Cruz, working with Greg Glassman and that whole team, training with them. And eventually, Greg offered me a job, very informal, helping out at seminars. And I started helping out at seminars and doing, never saying no to anything he offered. Anytime he said, hey, do you want to go here for a seminar? Yes. And I learned that's an important lesson too, I learned that from the teams. Is just volunteer for everything. Put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to fail. If you want to succeed at something or get somewhere in your work or in your job place, put your hand up for any task that comes up, even if it's cleaning the bathrooms, taking out the trash.
Right.
Always be a go-getter. And so when Greg started presenting me with opportunities, I never said no. And I watched a lot of people in CrossFit come and go because they started saying no, or they just didn't want to commit. And 10 years later, here it is, and it's pretty big, pretty important. And I think I saw other people come and go that might have had the same opportunity but didn't take advantage of it. But what a lot of people don't realize is from 2007 to 2010, I was doing both. I was working for CrossFit full-time and active duty in the military. The 2009 games, I was deployed to Afghanistan, and I was planning the games and seminars and scheduling and staffing from Afghanistan.
Wow.
And yeah, I kept that quiet, but I did that for a couple months. So then in 2010, and by 2010, you think about 2010, I mean, the games are already getting pretty big.
They're at the Home Depot Center.
Yeah, CrossFit's already big. I was still in the military at that time.
Wow.
2010, I decided to get out, and I did a deployment in 2009. So from 2007, 2010, I was an instructor at Buds. And I knew, I had a feeling I was going to get out in 2010, and because how well CrossFit was going and how well the opportunity was for me. But in 2009, I called up my old team leader, and I said, hey, do you think I can come back and do a deployment with you guys? And just, in myself, it was another one of those, I have to do this. I knew I needed to deploy one more time, and I needed to do that before I got out and committed to CrossFit for so many reasons. And so I deployed in 2009 for a couple months and just went to Afghanistan with one of my old units. And it was important in helping me understand that I was ready to let that go. I was ready to move on and get out and dedicate my life to CrossFit. Because I knew if I stayed in, I would have to go back to that same unit and deploy and do the same things by my own desire. I couldn't stay in the teams and do, let's call it take shore duty, what guys call it, and just kind of, I don't want to say hide out, but not deploy.
Right.
If I was going to be in, I was going to be all in. And that deployment in 2009 helped me figure out it was time to step away and just dedicate myself to CrossFit. And so I did that, and that was, I miss the teams, I miss what I did, but I'm also very happy with what I do now and the direction it's gone. And, just the desire for everything to be as good as I can possibly make it, and to make all of those around me and involved feel the same way, feel like they've accomplished something, feel like they're putting out a great product, feel like they're part of an amazing team. Those are the things that drive me. When I look around this event, there's hundreds of volunteers, and every one of them having an amazing experience. Every one of them feeling that they're part of a team. Every one of them feeling like they are making this happen because they are. That matters to me, and that's important to me. And that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me happy. That's what drives me to make things better. It'll never be good enough in my eyes, but I'm always trying to make it as good as it could possibly be. Yep.
Amazing. Well, I want to finish with 3 questions I ask everyone.
Okay.
So the first one is 3 things that you do on a regular basis that you think have the biggest positive impact on your health.
Okay. I cut refined carbohydrates significantly from my diet. I've seen, my dad has diabetes, and he's lost multiple limbs now because of his lifestyle. My mom died a few years ago, and that was because of her lifestyle and her eating choices and how chronic disease tore her life apart. And so I know what it can do to people. And obviously from the training aspect of CrossFit, I know how important it is to longevity and what it means to the future of individuals and whole nations, essentially. And on a side note, that's the power of CrossFit, is the fact that you're going to go into a gym and you're going to start training and you're going to get fit and you're going to change your life in that way, but learning all the healthy habits, learning how to eat. And then here's the real power. You learn that for yourself, but then you start spreading that to your family. Even if your family and friends don't start CrossFitting, you start educating people on how to eat right, and that helps change families, change communities, because we need to change how people currently eat.
It's true. I
was on the airplane and I was sitting next to this lady who was, when I was flying to Dallas, who was overweight, and I was looking at her eat, and she was eating, she had bagel and biscuit and orange juice, and then she asked for more orange juice, and I was like, man, you are just like, you're going to kill yourself, and you're just eating to put yourself in an early grave. And I felt like I wanted to say something to her, but it's too hard. It's too hard. You don't approach people with it. You don't open with that stuff.
Right.
It's like religion. So people get very.
You don't want to push people away too early, but
exactly. And so the eating right, training's an important habit or important thing I do for myself to stay healthy, obviously. And then keeping my mind just going, keeping my mind fresh. Reading's helped a lot with that. Going to theater has helped a lot with that, and just doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
Always looking at things that challenge me or I'm not really into, but trying to get outside of my box. That's very important to me, is challenging myself and staying in this simple mold. And I do that. I challenge myself in various ways. You think I really want to wear Versace on an open announcement and do muscle ups? But no, I'm like, hey, I'm in Italy. Let me try this. Let me try something different. Right. And so I'm constantly challenging myself. And you know what? I get criticized for it, but I don't care. I don't listen to the critics.
Out there.
Yeah, I put myself out there.
I remember a couple years ago we were at an event and you decided to play chess against or checkers or something against like
chess.
A professional
a grandmaster.
A grandmaster, and you're like, I'm just gonna go for it.
Yeah, same thing. I'm not afraid to put myself out there, and you know what? I'm not afraid of what comes from that, because if you're afraid of that sort of stuff, you're not gonna succeed or be successful. You need to put yourself out there.
Absolutely. Do you have a favorite book or favorite play?
Well, this year I'm going to talk about books I've recently read. I read The Grapes of Wrath, and
I could never get through that. I tried to read it in high school.
The ending blew me away. The
Really?
ending blew me away, and I was like, wow, that was an amazing book. Then I read East of Eden and followed it up to Steinbeck, and I was like, man, the characters are they're so amazing. They're developed. And it's just the way he developed the characters and went through them and put them out. I just really appreciated East of Eden. I think I enjoyed the ending more of Grapes of Wrath. And now I'm reading Victor Hugo, Les Miserables. And
have you seen the...
No, I haven't. I will after I read the book. That book's blowing me away. I really enjoy his character development, how he's telling the story, I'm not, it's 1,400 pages. I'm about 800 pages through right now. And it's crazy how he's just kept me like in the book and involved. And so those, I'm just talking recent books because those are what I've read recently, but those three, I've read about 6 or 7 books this year, but those 3 were very powerful and have been very powerful. And they will be on my top list of favorite books for a while.
Wow. Very nice. How about one thing that you think would have a big impact on your health, but you just can't get it into your routine?
One thing that would have a big impact into my health, but I just can't get it. Oh, yeah, probably not drinking. And I don't drink a lot. But I do drink. And I think if I cut that out entirely, it'd be better for me. I don't want to say cheat, but I eat sweets more like once a week. If I cut that out, stuff like that could help. If I was more disciplined in my training too, but that's not a really health thing, that's a performance thing.
Right.
But I'm pretty happy overall with how I don't smoke or do anything like that.
That's good. That's good to know.
Yeah.
How do you differentiate that between when you said a health thing versus a performance thing?
Well, that's
huge. Do you think there's a difference?
There's a huge difference because, some of these people are training for performance and to excel at this, and they put their body through a lot. And then they're just training for health and just living a fun lifestyle. I mean, some of these people are stressed, You stress so hard training to go there, to training to be the best out there on the floor.
Yep.
And that's different than training for health.
I agree. It's very different, and I've realized that this year. It's much more fun to train for health. Last question is, what does a healthy life look like to you?
A healthy life looks like having habit, staying away from food that's going to, mess you up in the long term, give you chronic disease, staying away from the refined sugar or refined carbohydrates, staying away from sugar, exercising your mind too. And again, having a habit, having a routine that's productive and keeps you fresh, keeps your mind fresh, and doesn't have any, you don't want anything, distractions that are making you negative, keeping you down, keeping you in a bad place. So I think a happy lifestyle is physically, mentally, and it's keeping everything going, keeping everything stimulated. Stimulate your mind, stimulate your body with making right decisions in the food.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Thanks.
We're looking forward to seeing how the rest of the season plays out.
Good luck in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for tuning into this episode. I always enjoy talking with Dave and learn a lot from him, and I hope you were able to see another side of the man behind the CrossFit Games. To make sure you never miss an episode and to receive exclusive content from me, head to my website, juliefouché.com, and subscribe to my email list. Also, don't forget to share your stories. If you or someone you know has used lifestyle to overcome a serious health challenge, please email me at info@juliefouché.com. I'll choose some of these inspiring stories to share here on the podcast in future episodes. Also, if you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe and consider giving the podcast a 5-star rating on iTunes. And I always love hearing your feedback, so please leave comments under this post on my website and share your thoughts on social media using hashtag JFHealth. Thank you again so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time on Pursuing Health.